Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on Sunday, July 13th, 2014 at 12:25 in the day here in the afternoon, Eastern Daylight Time. Now, I went to the 8 o'clock service, and perhaps in another video, I will talk about some of the theological content of that service, but not here because when I got home, I got looking around through some of this crap, you see. My word, the amount of stuff a person buys over a lifetime is just astonishing. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't buy nearly as much stuff as guys in my professional situation bought in their lifetime. I mean, this is a modest amount of stuff. So much for the upper middle class and upper class, way of life, huh? I eschewed those categories. Once you have enough, you have enough. How much more do you need or want? Turns out more than what I really needed or wanted. Yeah, it's not quite true because at the time, I used these materials quite a lot. Well, what I found today was one of these notebooks, and I had started to write a series of sort of satirical haikus, the old 5-7-5, 5-syllable, 7-syllable, 5-syllable format. Admittedly, perhaps at times not strictly adhered to. Pache, our friends from Japan, where the form was developed. But that talked about things that happened in my life. Well, there's just a wealth of material here, which, of course, I'm going to mine for you here over the next weeks or so, or months. But today, I thought just to give it a start here, I'd show you some stuff and read you the appropriate haiku and maybe make some comments. Well, probably make some comments since this is the Joe Kersey channel. So here's a fella. Now I'll have to get this right up by the camera. Toxic foam kills underground pests. Now you can see there's like a little cage over this hole, and this fella's injecting some sort of foam, kind of like that insulation that you spray in the walls, that then expands and solidifies, something along those lines. Toxic foam kills underground pests. Now, before the copyright mavens get into a snit about this, these things were all culled from magazines, well over about, gosh, we're looking at we're looking at 15 or 16 years ago. So it might not be strictly public domain, but it's not offending anybody. I'm going to tell you that right now. So here's the picture again. Toxic foam kills underground pests. And the haiku I wrote for that was, see, artists get inspired by all sorts of things, don't they? toxic foam machine, solidifying gophers, no bubble wrap here. No, the bubble wrap thing was a reference to something that I'd seen pretty much about the same time, where where some guy had apparently tried to put bubble wrap around a hornet's nest, and as one might expect, that little inquiry into the possible didn't go all that well for this guy. And now we have diesel-powered bike. Now, if you look closely at this guy, he's installed. It looks like probably one of those 3 or 4 cylinders diesel engines, like you might have like on a smaller tractor, or perhaps on a generator. And he's mounted this on a motorcycle. He's chopped, a hog or something like that in two, and he's got this diesel engine. He's riding behind this diesel engine on this motorcycle. And so I wrote, my diesel bike, throbbing against my privates. Wife won't speak to me. Perhaps this man had to, what's that psychological jargon term? Maybe he had to engage in some displacement behavior by, since his wife wasn't being receptive to his loving, he had to get engaged to this diesel engine motorcycle. Well, guys have certainly done worse. I know there are guys out there that watch me that know that. You could do worse than being engaged to a diesel engine motorcycle. Well, actually, maybe some of my lesbian viewers might draw another more, how shall we say, stereotypical analogy from that. As in diesel, that's just the way the world works, guys. I didn't make it. I'm just living in it. And now we have a fellow, and this, actually now I'm remembering where these came from. This came from it was a farm, it was kind of like a mixed, want to buy a farm magazine, here's some neat farming ideas that guys came up with from their shops, on the farm. And so the next one is giant bug zapper kills grasshoppers. Now apparently this fellow had been beset by grasshoppers on his farm. And he electrified a length of what looks like to be chain link fence. And he applied voltage across it like they do in these blue light bug zappers. But apparently what he's going to do is he's going to drive this through a field, and there's going to be a certain number of grasshoppers fly up against it, and they're going to get zapped. And he's pulling it on, it looks like he's pulling on one of these larger, 4x4, little ride around tractor type things. Well, I think that's just as neat. That's just neat as hell, isn't it? As long as it doesn't set the field on fire. Because some of these grasshoppers, these bugs will get burning and they'll sizzle, they'll drop down, they'll set the place on fire. So you gotta watch out for that. So I wrote for my haiku, electric zapper, relentlessly crossing field, better fly real fast. I imagine if in a fairly thick field, if you hadn't mowed that down fairly close, there's going to be a fair amount of resistance to dragging something that wide through it. Still. And then we have what looks to be a somewhat unfortunate Hereford. Well, the British would call them Herefords, but I don't know, they may pronounce the cattle breed Hereford and the city Hereford. There's a city over there, it's a cathedral city. Nice cathedral, I've been in it. It's one of those sandstony cathedrals, very dark. But, it has its charm. But this was called Grow Your Own Unicorn. And there's a fairly embarrassed looking Hereford just probably wondering what the hell's going on. And so I wrote, jeans horsing around, won't even shade my poor face. Now I'm in a zine, which, basically is magazine. A zine. Technically a zine from about 20-some years ago were these things that were run off on mimeograph machines and, by sort of the alternative folks in the world and handed out on street corners, It was the forerunner to internet blogging. It was forerunner to what I'm doing here. 2 stages removed, So that was kind of fun. I have one here that I don't have a photograph for because it would have involved one of my dead dogs, and I can't bear to deal with that right now. But again, when the weather would turn cold and the dogs got older and frailer, we'd put sweatshirts on them, and then when you'd tie you tie it so that it was snug against their back and belly, and you'd roll up the sleeves so that they'd be warm, and then of course if they had to go out, then you'd take it off, then you dry them off, put it back on, they'd lay against the heater, that sort of thing. But we had a very bad snowstorm here once. It was probably about 94, 95. And I wrote, favorite t-shirt, helping me ride out the storm, hoping for a treat. Because they didn't like to get in them. They liked being in them when they were in them. But they didn't like getting in them. They didn't like having you put them on them. And so, we'd always give them a treat afterwards. That made them happy. So that tended to solve that problem. And now is an appropriate end to this little video today. Well, this probably first of maybe 2 videos for today. Here's one that's just right off the top of my head from Well, it's not off the top of my head, but this was actually apropos of nothing because I just happened to write it long before I got involved in this computer stuff or internet stuff. My parents warned me, staring at computer screens would do something bad. I might explore whether that's done something bad here in a later video. But for now, I'm going to say bye-bye, YouTubers.